Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. We've got a really exciting session ahead for the next hour, but I want to give you a little bit of context of what's coming through. You'll be able to see Craig and Karen here on screen. I'm going to introduce them in a moment. Hi, I'm Dave. I head the product marketing team here at LexisNexis, and I'm very lucky to be able to speak to experts in the field. I've spoken previously to Craig about his experience of Lexis AI and what that's looked like in reality. It was fascinating. I knew that had to be shared wider. I'm lucky enough to have spent lots of time with Karen, who goes by many titles, but I call her the product boss because she knows everything to do with LexisNexis and what we create. And I guess this is where I kind of just set the scene a little bit to say, look, we've moved past the hype. Legal AI is now a reality. It's part of everyday practice for firms that have acted early. And so those results are real. And that's why we're joined by Craig today, because actually as head of legal operations at Brevitons, he can help us look at what legal work looks like when AI is fully embedded into daily workflows. Look, that might mean not having the later nights. It could be anything. Let's let Craig tell us that. But it's about how they can review the impact of that. There's some really interesting information there around the billable hour and what it means in terms of your research. This is conversation focused on what's actually working in practice. We also have Karen, and so Karen will be bringing us more insight. So the first half, Craig's going to give us a real deep dive into what it looks like, and then in the second half, Karen is going to give us some more insight on the key Lexis AI workflows. So, we're going to get those insights. We'll look at how legal AI supports real work, from research and drafting to document analysis and timelines. And so I guess if you're having questions, if you're wondering whether AI is worth the investment, or how you introduce it firm-wide, or what does business as usual really look like in 2026, well, this helps to bring that to life. And Craig's a great person to have speak about it, because actually, he's responsible for driving the operational efficiency, innovation, and effective use of technology across Brevitons. And so, he has this focus on modernizing legal workflows and works closely alongside the legal teams and the leadership to ensure that the people, processes, and systems in Brevitons support really high quality client outcomes. And so his view, because he's been so closely involved in the firm's approach to legal technology adoption, is really, really valuable. And he has the insights on what that practical integration of AI into the everyday legal workflow looks like. So he's going to bring us a grounded operational perspective to discussions that we have today about how firms can adopt new tools safely, sustainably, and at scale. Let me take a pause for a moment and just say welcome and thank you, Craig, and Karen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, Karen is going to join us again in the second half, so you will be seeing her back, and that'll come through. But I'm going to dive straight in now. And Craig, I think everybody is probably curious what the reality today looks like. What is a business as usual? And so I wanted to ask you, what does your day-to-day reality look like now that Lexis AI is embedded in legal workflows?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing to say is that we've just got more people than ever before using Lexis libraries, and there's been a real breadth of adoption in terms of use of legal AI, and it's been embraced by all of our lawyers across all of the teams at Brevitons, which has been a fantastic sort of implementation project for us. We've got core teams, as you would expect as a multi-service firm, but we've also got our niche teams as well. And what we've identified is that AI touches on them all, and it provides efficiency gains across all these teams, whether they'll be a run-of-the-mill team or a more niche team. And they're all recognizing time-saving benefits of that. So our legal teams have really just enjoyed, I think, the additional support that legal AI, that Lexis AI has offered to them. So it effectively, I think, feels like for each lawyer that they've just been paired now with an experienced and extremely efficient paralegal. All of those administrative tasks that they were doing in practice, that they can now just ask a digital AI assistant to do, is what's been achieved. So we're realizing the benefits by producing easier and faster access to legal research using the prompting tool that Lexis provides. We're seeing increased efficiencies with the drafting tools. And the way the drafting tools, I think, are working in practice is what's happening is it's giving our lawyers a sort of a 60% starting point. They're asking the AI a prompt, and they're receiving a very good quality response, but they're still able to lawyer on top of that. So they're still able to put their points across to get it the rest of the way there. But many of them have shared with me that just getting to that starting point is the majority of the work that they're providing. And in turn, that is resulting in better quality outputs in a much shorter space of time. Now, the things I've mentioned there, you probably expected me to say, they're the obvious things, they're the administrative things. But what I wanted to also touch on is some of the unexpected benefits that we've seen in some of the AI as well. And that's things that you think about once you get into the nitty-gritty, but we've certainly seen that the tools have been used to help author more template documentation in our system, and it's done that extremely efficiently, really quickly, in minutes, not hours. And we've been able to get swathes of new precedents in our system, as well as check previous precedents that have existed and get those updated. It's helped our partners who have been invited to do conference attendance to actually prepare for that. Some of them have written their presentations and certainly checked the technical information in their presentations just using the AI tool. And again, I think one particular partner in the firm mentioned that they'd sort of set aside a full day to do their presentation preparation using Lexis. They were able to achieve that in I think an hour or two, and with the citations, with the references that are provided by the tool, just know that that was legally sound. We can see on our litigation teams that large volume documentation is getting effectively summarized, which again is helping them to get to the summary information in large portfolios of information. And then the biggest unexpected benefit is just the way that the use of legal AI has actually increased lawyer confidence. And this I really didn't necessarily expect to see, but a large number of lawyers are using the tools to just double check or verify something that they're already 90% sure they know the answer to. They're trained individuals, they're professional, they know the law, and they're actually just using it to verify their information before they send that out. It's a bit like they're getting their homework checked before they're having to submit it. And many of them are really enjoying the fact that it is allowing them to verify what they were going to say anyway, but they're able to do so with much more confidence. So yeah, I mean, but in reality, we recognize now that we've only just scratched the surface of what we think we can do. So we will almost daily now spot pockets of, well, actually that document is a consistent document that we see. Let's start to define some prompts that we can use to query that document. And we're just starting to think about how we can often apply legal AI to help support that particular process. And there's hundreds, thousands of them, and we're recognizing them all the time. And it's a learning curve for us all the time.
That's I mean, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because when you've got someone who's got a team of people using it and getting the feedback, you get an insight that you just don't get from the kind of theoretical, and I really appreciate it. And I think actually I'm quite interested in what adoption looked like for you. So once you did decide to adopt Lexis Plus AI, how did you actually go about it, introducing it to the firm? Like, what did you prioritize early on, and what were the lessons that you would share with firms who are thinking about rollout now? They're coming to it.
Yeah, so in terms of our implementation of Lexis AI, and I don't mind sharing that as a firm, we were particularly nervous about dipping, and as I think many firms are, we were particularly nervous about just dipping our toe into legal AI. We were concerned about all of the associated dangers, the incorrect responses, the citing of irrelevant case law, or even worse, fabricated precedents, out of jurisdiction influence, bias, all of those things, that we were sort of consumed by that. And we were really worried about how we could do this in a safe way. So we actually joked as a firm that for us, AI as a concept was this fireball that was looking to spread. And we really wanted to keep that contained in a cage with a padlock on, because we really wanted to harness the strength of AI, but in a really safe way. So our implementation had to handle these big concerns about how far it could go, and all of the pitfalls of the fabrication and the incorrect responses, but do so in a really responsible way. So for this reason, we decided quite quickly that we weren't going to go big bang with our adoption and our release on this. We didn't want to just flick a switch and give all of our 110 lawyers access to AI tools, and we think that would have been quite risky and a mistake. So instead, we discussed as a partnership board what responsible use of AI would really look like at the firm, and we just tried to establish some parameters around that and some ground rules around that. So that we could do so in a safe way, and using Lexis really raised our confidence in that, because of course it was working on a closed AI model with trusted sources. So some of these ideas about the fabrication and undue influence, that was kind of taken away from the outset, because we recognized that by working and partnering with Lexis with this, we were going to have the trusted libraries of Lexis established over decades that we could trust, and updated frequently, of course, that we could trust. So to begin with, we released AI to our partners at the firm, and we did this very consciously because we wanted an experienced and trusted group that we knew would use it responsibly and who really robustly understood the pitfalls and the risks of getting it wrong. They were positioned that they'd be able to spot if they potentially saw something that they didn't think was potentially accurate. And within a short space of time, only a couple of weeks, we were receiving really resoundingly positive feedback. And I think actually they were really quite surprised about how good this tool was going to be for them. And I think for many partners in the firm, there was this sort of penny drop moment of just how useful the AI was going to be on a practical basis within their team. So once we had buy-in on a practical level from the partners, we then set out to clearly define an AI policy. And we were quite unapologetic about the fact that we were going to have quite a regimented and very clearly defined AI policy for the firm that we would be very clear that we expected everyone to follow. And that outlined a lot of practical guidance in there, with some must-dos and some must-nots when it came to legal AI. We then set to and communicated that policy to all staff, and then following that, we were able to implement AI and adopt it across all teams, but under the supervision of those partners who had been previously engaged with it. And we felt that mechanism, that sort of adoption, that implementation style really worked for us to offset some of those concerns, to get that engagement, to change the culture positively towards AI as a tool that could really support them, leaning on the fact that we'd very consciously done so with a partner in Lexis that was just so trusted, as opposed to the open source model alternatives where we felt a lot more of the risks existed.
Yeah, and I think the proof's in the pudding sometimes, isn't it? It's when people do use it and they get an opportunity to see what it can actually do. And actually, that sort of makes me think around the usage piece, because you have seen a significant increase in usage since you rolled Lexis Plus AI. And I'm quite curious, what do you think explains why lawyers kept using Lexis Plus AI rather than just like treating it as a one-off experiment?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, David. We saw an incredible increase in uptake of just the use of Lexis in a very short period of time. So we went live in the August of went live in the August, and then in this September, so only a month later, our usage of Lexis had increased fivefold. So it would, it effectively times 5 in terms of the number of people using it. And then a month later in October, that had gone into sixfold as well. So, and that's been a sustained usage ever since. We were really quite surprised actually that there wasn't that fall off thereafter. But there was no doubt that it was making just access to the trusted Lexis legal libraries a lot easier for everyone to use, and just a better user experience in the prompt and the conversational way that the AI was working. And I think the reason I think it continues to be really popular with our lawyers is just because it again, it's just using that trusted, long-standing legal partner that they've all known for years. And it's got the citations, it's got the references that they're able to point back to. And I know a lot of lawyers have enjoyed, when they get their response in the AI, they've been able to ratify that information with the citations that have been provided, and then they've been able to follow those breadcrumbs to even further check and almost use it as a learning tool, a refresher tool, to just follow all that through. And I think that's where Lexis stands out in compared to the more generic AI models that can't quite achieve that same referencing and citation that's doing. So, and then of course they're able to layer their questions, and what we're finding is that they're getting just so much better at just asking the follow-up questions to further refine their answer. So it's but ultimately as well, sorry, it's just because what they've seen in the outputs that have been provided have been very high quality, and they've actually they've not been able, to my knowledge, to be able to really call it out as anything that's been really factually incorrect. So I think when they've asked the right questions, they're just confident in the responses it's given. They're seeing what they're expecting to see, and that's just doubling down on the confidence for them to continue to use that tool.
Yeah, and I think it's it's certainly something that I love to hear in terms of the fact that it's making a difference. Because I sometimes get a bit cheesy because I get excited, right? Like this is part of our contribution is enabling lawyers and legal professionals, and so it's nice to see that happen. It's really interesting because in a couple of points there you mentioned the kind of citations and the importance and the kind of power of those. So coming back into those kind of citations and trusted legal content, what has it been about that that's so critical in getting lawyers comfortable using AI in their actual real legal work?
Yeah, I think it just responds to their initial skepticism around AI. So I think there was a sort of a broken myth, I think, because I think a lot of them, when they were first introduced, had quite a large concern really about what the tool was going to produce for them, and what they were going to see, and how credible the information they were going to receive was going to be. But and of course, yeah, there was just concern about the fabrication and the fact that things could be way off the mark. But because of the closed language model, because it was pointing directly back to sources elsewhere in amongst the legal library, because they were able to follow those breadcrumbs, and it all stacked together, and it was all sort of self-verified in its own platform. I think that just really heightened their overall confidence in what they were seeing, and it dispelled the myths around the fabrication and the undue influence and the bias that I think they might have seen in potentially in other more generic platforms. So yeah, it's just that confidence piece, and that's just grown as they've used it more, and they've further used those citations, further seen that referencing, and it's just sort of, it's stacked on top. It's just a very safe playground, I think, for the lawyers to play in, and do so and ask all their follow-up questions, ask all their prompts, ask no silly questions in this safe playground from such a trusted source in Lexis.
I'm really enjoying this playground visual, and I'm thinking of all sorts of images that I should put into our marketing around lawyers and playgrounds. It could be really fun. Maybe I won't get away with that. We'll see. There's actually another bigger question. This was the one that when we first spoke, I found really fascinating because it was all surrounding the kind of partner buy-in and the billable hour, actually. Because I know that early on, there were questions around the billable hour and the kind of client impact. And so I'm quite curious if you could share how you got the kind of partner buy-in, and how do those concerns look now with Lexis Plus AI actually in use?
Yeah, so it's second only to the concerns about the safety and the accuracy of using the AI were the concerns about the commercial impact of introducing the legal AI and what that might have on us. So yeah, we immediately considered whether the efficiency gains that were being borne by the legal AI, Lexis AI, whether that would put pressure on us to change our pricing strategies. And just like many firms out there, we manage a combination of fixed fee services where we're consciously telling our lawyers that they don't need to record their time, and some services where the billable hour is still used, of course. And I think the adoption of the Lexis AI is subtly different in each of these cases. So for the fixed fee services, where I'm happy to share we've been able to maintain our pricing strategies in relation to those fixed fee. I think just by nature of it being a fixed fee service, the client has been primarily focused on the legal solution that's delivered at the end of the fixed fee service, as opposed to the mechanism of how you got there. And because we've agreed that price at the outset, they know what they've agreed to pay, and providing that they receive a high quality service that delivers on their expectation, they remain, in our experience, happy to pay it. What we have found is that the AI and the efficiency gains that it's has allowed us to promote more time and provide more time to a better quality of service. So the customer service aspect of that has raised whilst whilst the price has been sustained. So I think it's actually been a bit of a mutual benefit on that front, that they're ultimately receiving better quality outputs with better customer service for the same price that they were previously paying. And we've not actually received that direct challenge that because we're using a tool that's arguably more efficient, that should be driving down the price. I think they recognise that probably what they're getting now is of greater quality service, and they're getting handhold with better customer service throughout that fixed fee transaction. When it comes to the billable hour, it's a slightly different scenario. So what we found in this side of the coin is that where time was being recorded as legal research, preparation, or drafting work, which has now, of course, with the emergence of AI, become more efficient for this, and thus we're recording less time. Because we've clearly stated it in our policy that all of our AI outputs will be subject to senior supervision, what we've identified there is that we have more time in the supervision element of that. So what we're getting in that scenario is more experienced individuals checking the work that's been produced by the digital assistant, and so I suppose it's not necessarily like for like, but we have seen an increase in supervision where we've seen a downturn in the administration, which again, of course, is overall heightening the quality of the overall service that's been delivered. So as at the moment, we have no current concerns that the introduction of the AI is going to result into us having to make any big changes to our current pricing strategies at the firm. And yeah, we consider that ultimately it's enabled us to enhance our quality service at no additional cost to the client.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? And that conversation around actually the kind of quality and what the output looks like, and the involvement of the legal professional within all of this. The AI itself is a useful tool, but ultimately just a tool. So I really love that. And I think actually one of the things that comes through around, and it sort of flows on from this conversation a little bit, is that I previously heard you use the phrase, and it tickled me at the time, that Lexis Plus AI is acting like an experienced paralegal. And I was like, actually, how has that changed lawyers' confidence in the advice that they're giving and how they interact?
Yeah, so and I think, as I mentioned previously as well, the lawyers already know, or they're 90% of the way there with how they're looking to respond to the response there. So in the vast majority of circumstances, they know the relevant law. They know what they're wishing to apply. They just want a shortcut with how to get there or how to verify that. So yeah, Lexis AI is providing that experienced digital paralegal, probably one of the best paralegals in their team, I suspect, that's helping them to verify exactly what they already knew in that case within a matter of minutes. And it's just helping them refresh their knowledge on that, get quicker access to something that they absolutely recall. So I've definitely received a lot of feedback from the lawyers that they are predominantly using the tool to verify law that they've wanted to reply, and then they're just using the drafting tool to help them get a letter or some content that is already 60-70% of the way there, that's detailing. I think one of the lawyers said to me before, they just needed to get started on a letter, and then they're on underway, and it's providing for them that starting point. All that thinking, all that layout, all that structure is then set, and then they can tailor their document and do the next piece of work that they're looking to do. And of course, yeah, and then in terms of, it's an experienced digital paralegal that's providing all that background wealth of references and citations, which are so important to verify what you're seeing as well. So it's just grounded in trust, because it points back to those. And I think one final point I'd make on this is, it's a tool whereby the most experienced lawyer can ask the most what seemingly silly question, but in confidence. That there's no embarrassment there, there's no judgment there. They may not feel comfortable going to a human paralegal alternative because it's assumed they should already know that. There's no judgment with Lexis AI, and they can go ahead and ask this experienced paralegal the most stupid of questions, and it will give them a non-judgmental answer, which none of us can know it all at any one given point in time. So
I love that, and I love that we're creating a safe space for lawyers. That's important. That's important. I love that. So I have a question that I always ask people, and it is like, if I took Lexis Plus AI away tomorrow, what would it actually mean for your team? So tonight I'd switch it off, and tomorrow everyone walks in. What does it mean? What are they saying to you?
Yeah. Well, firstly, please don't do that. Within hours, or perhaps even minutes, I think I'd be receiving phone calls with some quite strong and passionate pleas to get that turned back on. Yeah, our lawyers have undoubtedly been really enjoying using the tools, and they've been building a reliance on those tools. And I think to take it away now would be them losing part of their armory, a part of their lawyering toolkit that they're becoming to rely upon. I think what's interesting when we look at the usage stats is that we've seen, and this surprised me as well, is that across the 4 component parts of Lexis AI, we've seen good usage across all of them. And so, yeah, you're taking away their ability to draft more quickly, their legal research, questioning the prompt and response, their ability to summarize complex case law really quickly, as well as, and this surprised me as well, they were using the upload tool. They've been uploading documents against it, getting those documents summarized, asking questions in respect to those documents. So you're not just taking away one piece of software, you're taking away 4 tranches of information, 4 possible solutions that are all helping them to lawyer on a daily basis. So yeah, and I also think as well, potentially in some teams, Lexis AI has plugged a known resource gap. So I think to remove Lexis AI at this point for some teams would reintroduce some resourcing difficulties where we would have to seek a paralegal level alternative.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And I think it's really useful. And actually, there'll be people watching today, right, or listening to this back, who haven't yet adopted Lexis Plus AI, or ultimately they're still hesitant about AI and legal work at all. And so what would you say to them now, based on your experience having been through?
Yeah, well, and the first thing I would say is I absolutely and completely understand. It was exactly where we were, and there's still skepticism in certain areas. It's not a complete puzzle. AI has and will continue, legal AI included, to move at an extraordinary pace, and it's so intimidating and so hard to stay abreast of that. But for us as a firm, we were not in a position, and we didn't have the appetite to try and do anything internally. We weren't going to customize or build our own solution. We needed to find the trusted partner that was going to work with us to let us jump on this train that was leaving the platform. And we didn't want to get left behind with that. So we knew we wanted to do something. We just had to decide what that was. And it's a scary world, and we needed to dip our toe in. But we've kind of found that working with Lexis has provided us with a really good, safe playground, safe environment, trusted supplier that's made that first step into legal AI a really sort of biting the elephant off in bite-sized chunks. And I think Lexis has offered a really accessible and easy to adopt solution to AI, that culturally, again, it was a known supplier to all of our lawyers. It's extremely user friendly. I mean, in terms of the training adoption, we literally just had to show people, I think one of your videos that's probably no more than 10 minutes long or something, and everyone just got it, and they're building their confidence in that. And we've had to let people build their own confidence, because everyone's going on their own journey. Everyone's trying to learn how to talk to these AI tools at their own pace. So yeah, I would just, I suppose, recommend to someone that Lexis does represent a trusted supplier and a safe environment to just begin that journey, and you can take it at whatever pace you want. And you know, we see it in some of our teams. Some of them are much further ahead than others, and that's absolutely fine. But you know, we still absolutely recognise that we are just scratching the surface about what we can do with the tools that are on offer, and you know, we can now start to tackle those, and project by project and process by process we can start to unpick that and try and understand that and apply that. It's not something that we're going to do at the flick of a switch. It's not something overnight. It's going to be an iterative process, and it's going to take time, but we feel confident that we've partnered with a really strong supplier in yourselves with this product, and we're already realizing the benefits, and we know that there's more on the table yet for us to sink our teeth into.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, and I always like to hear about eating elephants. That's a good analogy to bring in. So actually, we're going to bring Karen in a minute, but just looking back, just one final reflection. What's the one thing that you got right and how you implemented Lexis Plus AI that you think, you know, other firms could learn from?
Yeah, no, I think for us, bringing the partner level in at the outset, they had most to say and most concern, I think, about legal AI. So bringing them from the outset, open table, open forum, letting them discuss that openly with us, and then turning them really as the main change agents. And for some of them, that would have been potentially taking some resistors and turning them into promoters. And I think that single-handedly, partner level adoption, and then them working as the supervisors, coupled with a really well-defined AI policy, really helped us, because I think actually all staff at the firm have enjoyed the fact that there is a clear policy. They know what the parameters are, and they know how to work safely in amongst that. And I think that those two things in tandem really have really what's helped us get on board safely. We think safely with this. Yeah.
I think that's been extraordinarily helpful. And, you know, Craig's going to stick with us in terms of he's going to come back at the end. If you've got questions that you want to pop in, there is a little Q&A box in the corner. We're lucky enough, and we're actually going to have Karen join us. So Karen Waldron is our product development director at LexisNexis. And she's seen so much change over time around, you know, how these different things come through, what the capabilities are. And so I've got a kind of collection of questions with Karen to sort of help get some insights for you, really. And actually, I want to start by kind of, I guess, setting the scene, because you've probably heard us mention legal AI workflows today, and we mentioned that a bit. So when we talk about legal AI workflows, what does that actually mean in the context of Lexis Plus AI? Like, what are lawyers doing with them day to day, Karen?
Sure. Well, I think we heard some fantastic examples there from Craig, and I loved listening to what he had to say. Every time I talk to a customer about what they're doing with the product, there are more and more things that come up. So workflows really is just a term for anything a lawyer does to accomplish an outcome or an objective. So that could be producing a document, it could be conducting some kind of transaction, it could be answering a query, providing advice. So they can be relatively simple, or they can be more complex and made up of multi kind of step tasks that build up into a more complex transaction. And Craig mentioned some of those earlier when he was talking about partners checking legal references in conference presentations, or the authoring of templated documentation that would have taken hours, taking minutes. So when we talk about AI workflows, we talk about AI augmenting and assisting with the completion of those legal tasks.
Yeah, it's really helpful. And actually, I think, as you say, Craig gave some really good examples that really helped kind of bring that to life. Actually, just to give us a really nice, clean idea, I wanted to check with you, like if I'm a lawyer and I want to ask a simple legal question, like what are the different parts of Lexis Plus AI? Like what could I do right now?
Yeah. Well, it's a great place to start. It's very simple, asking a legal question. And one of the wonderful things about Lexis Plus AI is just how closely it is integrated with our research and our guidance content that sits within Lexis Plus. So there are many ways to answer a legal question, and really our aim is to be as flexible as possible, giving choice in how you do that, but in an easy way. So if there's a specific document that you know you want, like a piece of legislation or a particular case or a precedent that you'd like to use, sometimes the easiest way to do that is just to ask Lexis Plus, as you did before. That's still there, that retrieve me something quickly. But if you'd like a practical, structured summary of that case, then Lexis Plus AI can do that for you. Or if you have a general legal question, or as Craig said earlier, if you'd like to check the law on a piece of advice that you're about to give out, you can just ask that. There's an ask button within Lexis Plus AI, and Protege, our legal assistant, will answer that. And it will generate a response. So rather than you having to read through several different documents and synthesize that information, it will do it for you. But the really critical thing is that it will check the authoritative references in that response and link them directly back to the underlying content within Lexis research or practical guidance. So that makes it really easy to check that information, to read around it. And it will also suggest follow-up questions. So based on the context of your question, it can suggest some other questions you might want to ask. And this is really good for things like following a research path or reading around a certain area if you want to know more, or maybe thinking of a different angle that you hadn't put in your first prompt. So it's got that assistance as well. It's that back and forth conversation that you can have. You can even upload a document or documents, or you can store them in vaults and you can ask questions about your documents. And you can even choose to ask questions about relevant drafting material that you hold in your own DMS. There's an option for you to do that as well. So there are several ways that you can get an answer, but for us, it's about flexibility and it's about simplicity. So allowing you to get an answer quickly and understand it quickly, but always linked back to that content within Lexis.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to bring that to life. And actually, I want to dive into one that's a little bit more specific. So some people may have heard of timelines, some may not have. But there's a good example there of something that moves beyond that kind of basic research. So could you just give us a summary, how timelines actually work and when would it be useful?
Sure. So creating a timeline of events from a document or from a set of documents is really a good example of the type of time saving that we're talking about. So that's a task that if you're trying to do it manually to compile a record of what's happened over time, that can take many hours and longer. But if you upload a document or a series of documents to Lexis Plus AI, such as reports or statements or witness statements, for example, then you can just with one button click, you can extract the dates and list all the events in consecutive order. And those are grouped by day, by month, and by year. But also they have links back to the source of that information within your document. So it's a really great way to create an index of your documents through a chronological time, or you can even use it to spot inconsistencies between different versions of events, for example, and you can link straight back to where those sit within the document. So it is a really good example of taking it beyond Lexis content into different ways you can use AI to assist you with your work.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a really interesting example of uploading as well, right? Where you're taking documents that you've already got. And that's quite interesting because we are seeing more legal professionals upload documents. And I guess you can only do that somewhere secure. So what happens when they do that? What kind of tasks would there be?
Sure. So first of all, it's really important, as you say, to state that document uploads on Lexis Plus AI are secure and they're private. They're fully encrypted and they're not used in any way to train the models. And that's different from open source services for AI services. And so that's hugely important for people to know that their content is safe and secure and private. When you upload a document, you can do a number of different things with it. You can, as I said, ask questions of that document. You can summarize the document. You can create timelines. You can even use them as the basis of drafting or a number of different drafting tasks. And when you upload them, they'll either stay for the duration of your session and then be purged from the system for those privacy reasons, or you can choose to store them longer term in secure vaults, which again, you can go back to those again and again, but they're encrypted and they're private and secure.
Yeah, super. I think that is an important point to come back to, right? Because it's just going to be so important. And actually, some of these technical elements are really interesting to speak about. There is one that I want to check in with you, because lots of people might have heard the term RAG. So if they haven't, they might well hear it soon. I wanted you to help us with a kind of simple terms explanation. What does it matter?
Okay, so RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's the basis for how prompts get answered within Lexis AI. And at its heart, it's the ability to evaluate and understand a prompt that you've entered, and then from that information to retrieve the relevant sources for that answer from a specific set of sources. So in our case, that's the Lexis database of legal information, and then supply an answer that is built from that information. So that's different from being an open large language model who just uses patterns in language to construct the response. This is generated from actual documents within the system. So understanding and optimizing that prompt is critical to ensuring that you get a good and accurate answer. And so our model uses decades of experience in legal search together with the large language models, understanding of language to interpret and to break down that prompt. And then it will retrieve, but also it will rank that content, which means it's evaluating which are the best sources from the whole of the Lexis information that's there, which are the very best ones to answer your query, and then generating the answer from those sources, taking also all the authoritative references with them, which means, again, that you can link straight back into that source document so you know exactly where it's coming from. So that's how RAG works. But the future is actually moving to a more agentic AI system. And this, again, is something that you'll have heard an awful lot about. So I'll break that down a little bit for you. Because we're incorporating agentic AI capabilities into our AI assistants as well. So you'll hear much more about that in the future. But essentially, it's a system that uses agents to decide what needs to be done from your prompt, but then has access to the content and the tools to do that thing. So it will understand from the information you've given it what needs to happen, and then will do that to help the task along. So ultimately, this is about improving the quality of the responses, and it will check its own work when it's doing that. Now, people, again, sometimes can get cautious, can get a little worried about, and you've heard maybe about autonomous agents. But if you think of these agents as something that is trained to do one thing really, really well, and it understands the need to do that thing, and it does it as part of the transaction, it's about having that additional focus at each stage of the workflow and the process. So agents are still only as good as the tools and the content that they have access to, and only as good in their understanding of what you want them to do. And again, they will have those linked references so you can always refer back to and trust. So you're always in control, even with an agentic system. And we already have agents, for example, in our drafting tools within Lexis AI. So what they do are they are trained to check and refine the first draft so that the draft that you're served up already has that first check from, as Craig described, that experienced paralegal that you would get to do a first pass. That's what the agents are doing in agentic AI.
Yeah, it's really, really useful. And I think you've made a couple of references there to the content that kind of drives that. And I guess it's worth kind of exploring a little bit why retrieval grounded in that trusted legal content is so important, and like how do people, I guess, how can Lexis Plus avoid the risks people associate with some of the general AI?
Absolutely. It's just so important. It's absolutely critical that it's grounded in information that you can trust. Responses are only ever as good as the information that they're coming from. And generally, lawyers will have concerns about the accuracy of generative AI and about the possibility of hallucinations. And they are right to be cautious. You know, we've all seen the horror stories about cases made up in court, cited in court, not checked properly. So no one can guarantee that hallucinations absolutely will never happen. That's a feature of the technology. But there are things that significantly manage and reduce that risk. And key to that is grounding the responses in real case law sources like All England Law Reports, grounding information in real legal content, and then providing that link so you can very easily check it. And so checking those citations, creating those links, linking them to the actual document so you can see and read the real case law that it's based on is just so critically important to the system of AI that you use.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense. And you've got that kind of content element, don't you? That's really important. And then you've got the technology side.
Yeah.
And so actually, it's really interesting as we think about the technology. Lexis Plus AI doesn't rely on a single model. I know lots of people say they have a favorite model for different things, but actually, can you explain how our multi-model approach actually improves outcomes?
Sure. So what we've learned in working with these different models, and we've worked with a range of them for years now, is that some work better than others for specific legal tasks. You will find some models are better for drafting, for example. Some are better in their summarization capabilities. So when you enter a prompt or you choose the type of task that you want to do within Lexis Plus AI, it will, as part of that intent recognition, select the best model for the job from the ones that are available. And so we're constantly testing. We're constantly evaluating and updating those models. So you're not tied to any single one. And if there's a better one, we'll use that one. So you're not limiting your options in that way.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think actually it feeds into going, actually, we've got partnerships, haven't we? We've got partnerships with multiple leading AI providers rather than just betting on one, I guess. Yeah. Can you speak to why that's so important and what those partnerships mean for us and our capabilities?
That has been a deliberate choice from day one on our journey of this. And we're widening that to even more models and having partnerships with even more providers as we're about to introduce a new feature in Lexis Plus AI called General AI. And what that allows you to do is have access to a wider range of really advanced models that you can choose from for a wider set of non-legal tasks, or if you want access to things that are outside of Lexis content. For example, some of these advanced models are really good at things like advanced strategic thinking, creative thinking, analytical response, giving you a bit more depth. And as you say, with a wider range of content. So they pull as well from the model's own knowledge and from the wider web too. But critically, and this is really important, with those added security benefits of Lexis Plus AI. So it's secure and private, and citations are checked against our citators and linked to that underlying Lexis content. And so that allows us to partner with a wide range of different services. All of this is included within Lexis Plus AI. This isn't an additional service, but it just goes to show that our approach to partnerships and selecting models is based on giving choice and on getting the best selection available and not limiting us to just one partner, which would restrict, all the great benefits that you can have through Lexis Plus AI.
Yeah, I've always found it really interesting because right from the start, LexisNexis was leading, back in 2024 when Lexis Plus AI first came through. The enhancements that have kept coming through it have been remarkable. And there's a phrase that you often say, which I really like, which is, this is the worst it'll ever be. Yeah. And it's so true. And you mentioned there that actually we'd keep upgrading the experience for people as it goes. So when you buy with LexisNexis, you get the leading legal AI now and in the future.
That's true. Nice. And that's both in the sense of extending the number of features we have and the things you can do. But also a lot of this happens under the bonnet. This is just the constant work from our data scientists and our legal experts internally in evaluating and tweaking and doing some of that tuning to make sure that you get the benefit of the best models as they come through.
I love it. I love it. So we've talked through a fair few different workflows as it comes through. Is there any specific workflows because you speak to quite a few clients, is there any specific workflows firms are already using that you'd kind of call out to go, this is delivering clear value today?
Yeah, Craig mentioned a lot of them, but things like, asking a quick question to check a point of law, then following a line of research, reading around an area, getting information that you didn't even know you didn't know. That a lot of people describe that as one of the best uses, is just almost as a map over Lexis content to guide you through the information that you need. So that's one of the central parts. But drafting different types of documents, you can do that directly. You can draft whole agreements, you can draft contracts, you can draft letters, and you can then use that also within our Protégé AI assistant tools in Word, also in Outlook. One of the things I like to do most often is summarize emails, pull action points from emails. All of these things are available, generating timelines. And with the new general AI, the amount of things you can do there is really, your imagination is really the limit. So things you can do there are, for example, you might give some examples of your client's situation or the outline of a case, and you might ask it to give you an analysis of the big picture risks, the priorities you should have, your strategy in this case. And it can do things like it can suggest ways to strengthen your case. It can suggest ways to anticipate, potential objections or defenses and how you might overcome them. So it can get really, there are really like a wide range of things that you can do. And really my advice to people when I speak to them is, whatever you're about to do, try doing it with AI. Because that is likely to get you there just a little bit faster and give you some examples of things that, maybe you wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that practical kind of insight into what it means and what it can do is probably something that's been quite difficult for people who haven't been using it to get. So that's really helpful. And actually, you have that insight from speaking to so many people. That actually you can help us look ahead and look ahead at what this enables in 2026. So when you look at how these workflows are already being used and what's being developed, what does that tell you about how legal work is evolving in 2026?
Yeah, I think, the where you started from is absolutely my view of where this is going in 2026. This is when it becomes real and it becomes business as usual and it becomes part of the fabric of how you do things. And I think we will see that more and more. So we talk about AI assisted workflow. The AI is less about automation and more about assistance, more about augmentation, so that you can do the same things as lawyers. You can provide your expertise, but you get a little assistance along the way. So we look, you can look out for more things coming from us on a greater range of specific workflows, for example, a customized workflow builder, because every firm is slightly different. And what you might want to do is build a workflow that you can share within the rest of your firm that really matches what you want to do. And wider, as I said, wider application to other tasks, business development tasks, getting new clients, creating marketing communications. This is where we can really start to see AI implemented at scale across law firms to really help assist and augment the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly powerful. So super quick one, because I'm going to jump into Q&A and we'll pull Craig back in. So he's going to come join us again. Just a very quick one. If a firm is just starting with Lexis Plus AI, what would be the workflows you'd encourage them to focus on to get maximum value quickly?
Yeah. I would start by thinking of what you're about to do and try it. I really would. That's always a good place to start. But I think if you want to see how it works quickly, ask it a question. go in and ask it a legal question, and you will see how it brings back the references, creates the links, give you suggestions for other things to think about. I think that's a very quick way of getting hands-on experience of AI very quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Craig has got some examples.
Yeah, I mean, Craig, I think you started with a trial, didn't you? So your kind of way to discover the value was to try it, I guess.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Karen. It all starts with the asking of a question and just giving it a try, because we definitely had we've got some real driven people who want to challenge the AI, and they've been really sort of at the forefront of seeing how far it could actually go with what it could do, and it surprised us. You know, some of the lawyers are finding out stuff that I'd never even dreamed of, and then we've got the stuff that the shared workflows that we probably anticipated that we were doing. But it is absolutely that idea of just seeing how far it gets with the task you've got at hand. And I suspect 9 times out of 10, it's going to surprise you with what it's going to, or how far it will get you along in that task.
Yeah, no, I think that's extraordinarily useful, and that insight matters. Now, just a reminder to everybody who's watching, you can spot that little Q&A box and you can pop some in there. I've got some already set aside. Actually, Craig, I'm going to check in with you. Is there, this is a straight question, really nice and simple. Any need for fact-checking for search results from Lexis Library?
Yeah, so ultimately the answer was we had huge levels of confidence with the responses we were given, but I'll just caveat this because this was before Lexis General AI existed. So what we've actually did as a practical step is we knew that some people are just going to want to verify that information despite the citations, despite the references. So in our policy, again, we made it explicitly clear that Lexis AI was to be your primary tool to be used, but it was permissible, and we did allow access to Copilot as a secondary tool to fact check what it was seeing in Lexis. And we found that actually when people had two bites at the cherry, and if they were in doubt and Copilot had verified what Lexis was always the authority, it's fair to say, because of its legal grounding. But I think once they saw that Microsoft Copilot, we still use that, by the way, in the enterprise model. So we're still using it in, because the security aspect of that is just so important that Karen's described. But the fact checking that has occurred, we've let people use a secondary tool within reason, and that's helped them. But I think all that goes away with your general AI tool, when we can do that toggle and we can just stay again within the world of Lexis, but reach out to the wider range of content that you'll have available. That will be achieving that secondary check within the same platform, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Lawyers do more than it's not just legal tasks. So you also want to be able to take advantage of those quite remarkable capabilities for tasks that aren't strictly legal. Organize me a Friday afternoon quiz on something fun. So I've got another question here. Actually, and it's quite interesting. And Craig, you might be able to reflect from what you've heard back from the team. But this is saying, do you find that it's used in all areas of your practice or just some?
Yeah, used in varying degrees, in varying teams, by varying people. I think what we've discovered is it's quite a personal thing, and your adoption of the AI and your comfort of adoption is going to be very individual. But I've seen pockets of its use in all teams, including the non-legal teams. I myself used it the other day to help support some draft communications for the business continuity document I was working on, and it just goes back to exactly what Karen said, is just give it the job to give it a go and see what it produces for you, and you'll be surprised with the outcome. So yeah, there's a huge width and breadth of usage across the firm. Some of our lawyers are using it beyond probably what we would envisage. There's some specific tasks that we're really getting the benefit of. I'll give you an example of that. So we do complete routine lease reviews on a lot of leasehold properties, and the first aspect of that lease review, the more vanilla points, we've now got a subset of prompts that we will ask against all of these leases, and we just let the AI do its thing. So we are able to do a first pass at the lease review against these documents we're uploading. AI is handling that really systematically, really routinely, and then that's when we've now got an individual who's sort of checking that work as opposed to having to flick through every page of that lease. And that's just one example in our residential leasehold team where we're finding that the AI is just cutting that task down in terms of its administration. It's getting some really, it's able to read that document, lift out the clauses that we're looking to cite in our lease review reports, and it's achieving that as a really good win for us. And then it might allude to more sophisticated or technical clauses that then the lawyer has to take over and either ask additional questions about within the AI or take away separately for themselves. But it's definitely doing the heavy lifting on an administrative task like that, and that's been a huge win for that team. But every lawyer, one of our litigators again the other day was just had a wealth, a really high volume. I think it was a medical report, and they just wanted to see everything that happened on this particular date, and they were able to sort of date stamp it and just look through the entirety of the report, but just eliciting again through the summary tool, looking at a date, and they were able to just quickly again just get it to reference the information that they would need so that they could get their information. But there's all sorts of examples like that, and it's only really when you've got the job at hand that we're just telling people just go ahead and ask it the question and see how far it'll get you. And we're getting a lot of positive feedback that it's doing more than they ever envisaged it would do in the first place.
I mean, I don't want to finish, but it is 3:00, and this has been incredibly powerful, incredibly useful. On behalf of everyone watching and everyone who listens and watches in the future, a huge thank you, Craig, for joining us and giving us the benefit of your insight.
No problem.
Thank you, and a huge thank you to Karen for bringing your knowledge and expertise to the table. And with that, we're going to say thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.